Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, Kevin.
Happy New Year.
26 will be just like 25, but one better.
At least one better.
So I'd put together a outline agenda, which I pasted into the Slack channel. I've just copied it into the chat here. Were there other items that we should be discussing today? I'm conscious we've all been away for a few weeks. Okay, Bosco is away today. It's a holiday for him. Hi, Ryan. So the agenda basically is picked up from the last agenda. I think it should be a fairly quick meeting. I'll just wait a minute or two for anyone else to join us. Good. Hope everyone had a good break. Hi, Sebastian.
Hello.
Do you have access to the action items text?
Yes, I do.
Great. So we'll be able to run through this.
Yeah. So from the last meeting, here was an outline for the operational budget.
Sorry, just wait a second. I'll start the meeting properly. I'll just give people a second or two. Okay, I think we can probably start now. So welcome to the meeting of the Technical Steering Committee, the first meeting of 2026. Today's date is Wednesday, the 7th of January, 2026. And as I was saying before we started the meeting properly, we've got a relatively short agenda because we're just catching up after the break. So we'll be refreshing items that we covered in previous calls, and then looking forward to what it is we do in 2026. So Tex, you were presenting to us the actions from the last meeting.
Yes. So first one up was for Kevin to draft an outline of the 2026 TSC operational budget and share it with the group. Here it says by the end of the week, I believe that a copy of that was shared again within the channel today. Short blog post or X thread about the impact of the Constitution Committee size. If I remember correctly, there was a draft for that. I don't know if that actually went out. Formal invitation to the product committee. I do know the product committee did not meet this week, so I don't know if many would be in attendance here today. But this is on the agenda here, at least for us to discuss. For Ryan, Kevin, and Ryan, finalize the chain partition incident report. TSC members to review the vision document, specifically the strategy and KPI sections, And then for all members, again, consider and submit nominations for the vice chair position.
Great. So we need to check with Alex about the blog post. I think he did post something, but we can confirm that. But I spoke to Bosco about the invitation to the product committee. A number of people are apparently still away today, so he hadn't done that. I asked him to extend the invitation to them, and then we'll wait for them to respond to it. So they might be joining us next week, or we might set up a session with representatives of the product committee to discuss that. Chain partition report, we've got that as an item on the agenda, but the TLDR is a version was finalized before the break, but it's not been distributed to the community. 2030 vision we can come back to in the agenda, and nominations for vice chair, I think we'll have to wait for Bosco to tell us what the state of play is, unless anyone wants to out themselves and say they've applied for the vice chair position.
I would add a note here: the sooner the better for us to get this established. We're quickly running out of time before what would be the next slated election, regardless of any change in term period. So as that stands, basically the elections, although they take place in April, that tends to start around the March timeframe or even late February. So delaying that decision further means we're operating with just one single chair with no backup, to a point where we got other confusion going on. So just information.
Well, or technically, Tex, we've got one chair and we've got 8 backups. Okay.
Sure.
So maybe it's not. I would say it's not as bad as being. But it would be great to have a vice chair in post, and as I've said before, it shouldn't be a huge amount of work to do that. So please do consider volunteering. Great. So moving on to the agenda, chain partition, instant partition working group. I see we've got Ryan Williams here. Also got Ryan Kokorin. Would one of you like to present the current state? I think you were both at the last meeting. Right, Ryan Kokorin.
Yeah, so let me pull up the transcript for that meeting. I believe, so I'm looking at the report right now. I'd left a couple of comments on it. There was some discussion about what terminology we want to use when it comes to desired, undesired chain, minority, majority chain, chicken, pig chain. I think that there's still some debate happening on what we want to call it. And then I left another comment on there just about key follow-up actions about just enhancing testing to cover cases like these. Actually, I don't think that the transcript for that meeting is here, but I can summarize some of the other stuff. Yeah, draft report is nearing completion. Key findings included that the blockchain ledger remained consistent, preventing double spends on the chain itself, and that approximately 500 transactions only appeared on the non-preferred chain, with 20 previously unaccounted for.
Yeah, so Neil's asking, why was it not, was it not delayed due to Intersect asking for early view? The Intersect board and executives asked for sight of this before it's published. We gave them a view of this, and my belief is that we're basically waiting for feedback. Ryan W. on that.
Yeah. So we shared it with the executives and board just before Christmas holidays, as the working group had decided to do, had committed to deliver by then. Over the holidays, yeah, we've been just waiting on feedback essentially before publishing publicly. As of yesterday, we did have some feedback from the executives, and I've just been updating the report with those suggested edits. It's all quite minor stuff, and we'll go over that with the working group this afternoon just to merge those suggested changes in. But I believe we're still waiting on specific board feedback, and that would be a blocker for publishing, unfortunately.
So that's the current status. So my impression is the report is, so why, Ryan, do you want to answer that?
I believe I don't want to speak for the board maybe, but I can have a guess. I think the board feel this is part of their remit and part of their responsibility, due to, I don't know, perhaps the importance of this report to review it.
I'm sure we welcome any feedback on the report the board provides to us. Obviously, what we don't want to do is try to delay the report unnecessarily, but taking on board the feedback is always important. My impression from the report was, as you're saying, Ryan, that it's basically complete. It's complete. I don't think there's anything that we would want to add to it. There's some details that we're discussing. So one of the things that Marcus Gufler raised was whether we knew precisely what the percentage of nodes was on each of the two chains. So looking at it, I think we had some indication of what the relative weight was on the two chains, but we don't have direct evidence, so we might need to slacken the statement that we'd made there, remove the numbers. We seem to have suggested about 6% on the preferred chain and 94% on the non-preferred chain, but we were making some assumptions there, I think. So we either need to back that up with evidence or else soften the statement.
I have that as an agenda item for the call this afternoon as well, Kevin, so we can discuss with the group there. So
the call will happen immediately after this. On the timing is not perfect from that perspective, so we'll provide an update from that meeting, and with hopefully it's just a matter of making editorial changes, and then the report can be published. And I really want to put this to bed.
I agree with that too. Same sentiment from my side on that as well. A bit frustrating being blocked as we are with it, to be frank.
Happens. Neil, anything you want to add to that? Or? I know you've been involved in the working group.
I think we pick it up this afternoon. I mean, it's just. I think we just have to make it clear by saying the timeline of how the document was constructed, that basically we are now waiting on the board has had several working days to look at it. If it's really that important, then they should pull their bloody finger out and do something about it, to be very Welsh about it.
Well, and to make sure we don't get the wrong impression, it wasn't delivered to the board the day before the Christmas break. It was delivered a week before in a close to final draft forms. We've had at least a working week to look at this.
So I mean, it's we just have to make that clear. Right? I mean, I know this is being recorded, but there was a pressure to be quick and get it delivered before Christmas, all of which has that promise has been broken, not by the people doing the work, right? That's what I think. I think it's just clear that it should be pointed out. So
we'll discuss it in the working group later. Yeah. So, but thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Neil, and everyone else who's participated in that working group. It's the report, I think, is quite interesting. We managed to get to the truth of what happened as best we could in the time available. And there are obviously further details that we don't have the full facts at this point in time.
And I would also like, from as this is being recorded, etc. The fact is that the thing that strikes me is no one's screaming like hell that they got badly done by, as far as I can tell, right? So, and that's important to know. I mean, we can't know. There's 20 transactions we can't quite work out, but no one is screaming, you know, look, my children are starving because you did this type thing. So I think that's really important that the system, as a system, maintained, even across this event, maintain consistency. I think that's a strength.
Yeah, absolutely. It basically snapped back to the preferred chain. There was full consistency maintained across that period, and the only issue was the transactions that appeared on the non-preferred chain during that period, which obviously didn't, which as far as possible were replayed onto the preferred chain.
Yeah, and that speaks to, because everybody, you know, when people look at risks and DeFi risks and, you know, chain bridging risks, you know, it's always about a hypothetical condition which may or may not occur, and we have a practical problem that happened, and that the actual risks, the hazards that matured, that does. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't any, but we don't know of any, and no one's screaming at us and all the rest of it. So it wasn't perfect, but actually it didn't seem to have any operational effect on people, which is actually I'm finding surprising. I would expect at least somebody out there to be to have lost in some ways lost something, right? Apart from a bit of inconvenience, which it doesn't seem to have been the case, which is good. I think that's a strength that should be played up in an appropriate setting later on.
Let's discuss the best way to present that. You know, I think we already did in the working group, but this may be something for the comms team. We want to stay factual in the working group, but there are positive messages indeed coming out of the handling of the incident and the resolution of the incident. It could have been worse. It could definitely have been worse.
Well, the point is, you know, it's always been my adage. You know, you can't avoid problems. You know, and organizations can't avoid problems. And I know people say, "Oh, they had a problem. They shouldn't have had it." But it's actually how they handle them is the strength, is the real value when they occur. And I think this is being handled very well by the community.
That's great. Yeah, and kudos to the community for coming together and executing such a rapid response to the problem. Without that, it would have been a much worse situation. Great. So we should move on to the next item on the agenda. So the next item I put forward was the hard fork update. So this is basically slight news item. The development status is that we have a almost complete version of the node. It's expected to be finalized and put out for testing within the next week or two. And so this would be what we're expecting is that we will put 10.6.2 out for testing on some testnet. It will have all of the capabilities that are needed for the hard fork. We're just waiting for final integration of some of the very last features at the moment, a few last minute changes. And we would expect that to then probably become the release candidate for version 11 of the node. The version will go to the protocol version 11, the Van Rossum hard fork in due course. There's another version of the node in preparation, 10.7, which includes support for LSM. This is the log structured merge tree implementation of the off out of memory storage solution. So that's in preparation. It doesn't have any features that are essential for the hard fork. So it may well be that then becomes a version 11.1 or something in due course and doesn't get released before the hard fork, or it becomes an alternative to a 10.6 for the hard fork. but we'll need to see how the timing works out. What we don't want to be doing, I think, is to delay the hard fork for the sake of features that are not absolutely essential. So that's the current state of play. So based on what we know at the moment, it's likely to be a 10.6 based release, which is the release candidate, but it might be 10.7, depending on timing and any bugs or issues that are spotted. So we're getting close. We will need to review the cost model settings. There's new cost model settings for Plutus primitives. We'll need to do that next week, Ryan. And I know you Ryan Williams, you've got a we're going to have a meeting to discuss all of the different parameter updates and the timing, because this is now getting potentially a bit confusing in terms of what has to be done over the next month or two. So we've got some postponed updates because of the Constitution Committee elections, and we've got some other things which are coming through the pipeline, as well as these changes that are needed for the hard forks, and we'll need to put together a schedule that will allow for all of those to happen in a reasoned fashion. So that's the state of play. Any questions on that? So there's no date being predicted for the hard fork at this point in time. All we can do is look at development status. I said expecting a preview version of 10.6 within a week or two is probably the best guess from where we are at the moment. That then needs to go through thorough testing. Once it's been tested and people have updated their tooling, we'll then be in a position to put forward a hard fork event, a hard fork governance action onto mainnet, having done that previously on preview and pre-prod. So looking good. Timing not completely certain at this point in time. Yeah, do you want to, we don't have a tight agenda, Ryan. Do you want to just speak to the thing you've put in the chat?
Yeah, so the incentives working group has 2 parameters they're wanting to present as well. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with the efforts to increase K to 1,000. And also we recently discussed switching min pool cost to 75. And I can make the case for that one as well if that's a newer thing that people haven't heard about. I can present those next week. But the big thing that we're trying to not do is we don't want to step on the toes of the parameters committee, because I think that there's a requirement to set the hash of the previous successful parameter change for every parameter change governance action. So those will have to be coordinated so that they don't cause each other to fail. So we want to make sure that we have that in a row. And then, of course, some members are prepared to put up that group are still prepared to put up the deposit funds on their own, but are still seeking the blessing of the parameters committee.
Great. So the next meeting of the parameters committee is on Thursday, the 15th, Ryan. That'll be after the next meeting of this group next week. So
right. Next Thursday.
Next Thursday. So it'll be good to, if you're present, and we can have the discussion then.
Sounds good.
Be an interesting discussion about reducing min pool cost.
For sure.
Great. Thank you very much. So we can come. So did you want to present that again next week, or have we basically covered what you wanted to say? Do you want to have more time next week to go through your proposals in this group, Ryan?
I'm happy to present either of them. We have the draft already for the governance action for K, for stake below target number, so we could share that, and you guys can just leave async comments if you want. But I don't know if the case for lowering min pool cost to 75 has been made yet, besides when we discussed it before the break, you and me, Kevin, why that would be helpful. And we have kind of some data to support why lowering it to 75 is helpful due to the decreases in block reward size. But I can make that case as well if that's something that the parameter committee would be interested in sponsoring that governance action as well. So
great. So I think it'd be good to have at least an outline discussion in this group as well as a fuller discussion with the parameter committee.
Sounds good to me.
Let's give you a bit of time on the agenda next week to do that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Next item I had on the agenda was the TSC operational budget. I circulated a draft of an operational budget based on the one that was put forward in April last year. Seems like a long time ago. So I've circulated that. Happy to discuss that now, or happy to give you a bit of time just to look through it, and then we can go through it in detail next time. I think that there definitely seems we had some support from James. James joined us last time, and James was definitely in favour of providing support to community members, for example, and we need to do more in the way of technical outreach. So I think there's definitely a case to make for some form of operational budget. We probably need to do this fairly quickly if we're going to do it. Otherwise, we'll be running into the 26 budget cycle and we'll have lost a year of budget. So happy to go through the budget with you now, or happy to give you a bit of time to think about it, and then we can discuss it fully next time. Nicholas.
I prefer to have a week to review the budget, and then we can have a discussion. I guess at least on my side, it will be easier to do it this way.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was expecting that given the timing. And
yeah.
My memory has also lost a bit of effect. Too many mince pies and Christmas pudding, Nicholas.
Okay, perfect. It give you a whole week to look at what the figure you put in and to walk us through next week. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So what I haven't done in the operational budget, all I've done is to identify headings. So we had a discussion, I think, of the outline headings last time. I haven't put any numbers in terms of either ADA or dollars. One of the things we'd have to do would be to determine what reasonable amounts were. But I find it's always better to discuss the what before you start to argue about the cost of the what. So that way you get your priorities right and you don't say, well, we're not going to do X because it's too expensive, for example. So there will be, so once we've decided what it is that we would feel was sensible, we can then start to put numbers to this. But it wouldn't be a large budget proposal. It would be quite a small budget proposal compared with other ones that have been put in. So we're not talking about millions or tens of millions of ADA. Right. So we'll take so we'll all take an action to read through the current budget proposal, and please make asynchronous comments on the draft there, and then we'll have a full discussion next week. Modulo the meeting with the product committee. Okay. Scheduling parameter updates. We've touched on this, Ryan. Ryan W. Anything else you want to say on that?
Probably not. We have a call tomorrow, I think, to go through that and try to work on that, and we can present back to this group the outcomes of that. The only other action that's worth mentioning is we, as per this group's recommendation, Inceptive moving forward was submitting a hard fork naming governance action for Max van Rossum for the next entry of our hard fork. So we're aiming to get that on the network this week. So we'll be in this current epoch. So you've got a draft set of metadata. I took a look at it yesterday, Ryan. Looked like a good summary to me. You were waiting for a bit more feedback on that, but it'd be good to circulate that metadata to this group so they can provide any input to it. I do that right now.
Great. There's nothing secret in it, I think. So it could,
not at all.
It could even be public at this point in time.
It's been shared around with quite a few contributors for anyone who may know Max or wanted to add something. So definitely nothing secret. I'll share it with the group now. Here it is. Share as commenters. Okay. If you do have proposed edits, please, if you get them in today, tomorrow, so we can make sure we get this on chain on Friday. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we'll take an action to look at this by tomorrow.
It's pretty straightforward, small metadata based on the previous one we had done when we renamed Chang2 to Plomin. Should be quite straightforward.
Okay, so final item on the agenda, unless there's any other business, is the 2030 vision. As I said, I've asked Bosco to approach the product committee with a view to organising a joint meeting. We had an action from the last meeting to look at the KPIs. Has anyone done that, or were you otherwise occupied? Neil, I know you had some thoughts on the KPIs.
Sorry, one moment. I think my confusion, having read the report, is what I'm seeing numbers, but I'm not seeing how the KPIs feed into resolving a problem statement. Are you with me?
Right.
The KPI should lead into a supporting person. We have this issue, right?
Yeah.
And we with sub issue ABCD, right? And that you should be able to say, well, this KPI meeting this KPI addresses this issue. It's that sort of logic,
Right.
That's missing. That appears to be missing to me, because it should stand out when you read the darn thing first thing down through. Okay.
So you're saying the KPI is not tied to the...
Well, the point is the objective. It's just that flow. It's the standard flow I'd expect to see in a call to action statement, right? For any document, right? Which is just not there. Okay, I'm just trying to be, I'm sorry to be corporate. If people who know me, I'm the least corporate person, but I understand how to interact with corporates. And I know it's a pain in the arse and people don't like it, but there is a logic there that needs to, because everything that I'm hearing from everybody else is about people wanting to spend money using Ada, and the people who have that money in their pockets are typically people who speak corporate in general. Right. Just saying.
Right. So you're saying to summarize, we need to increase usage of the chain. Is that right? Is that?
Well, no. The point is, I'm not trying to say what the product committee should say, right? Because that's the product committee's role. But what I am saying is, if it's increased the usage of the chain, right, then you should be saying, if objective A is increase usage, objective B is make it viable, etc. You should be able to tie the KPIs to why succeeding with those KPIs would succeed with those objectives, right? In a direct way, right? Because it turns out that you may not be able to fulfill all the KPIs, and some will be less critical than others, and then that the point is the formation of this document should basically end up with the mission statement that everybody sort of gets behind in that way, right? And I mean, I'm doing this at the highest, just saying.
We need concrete examples to discuss with the.
Yeah, well, when we come to talk to the product committee, then we'll put some concrete examples together. But I think it's just the general thing is that flow of motherhood and apple pie. Making better pastry crust and better apples, getting rid of the apple blight type sort of levels of abstraction.
Sebastian.
I do recall that last discussion, it was mostly about these objectives of reliability, right? Which the KPIs are a bit off, or basically not, we don't see the connection there. The adoption bits maybe is more, okay, these are product criteria metrics, they can track it this way, this makes sense, or that we don't have any objections on that, or we didn't discuss any so far, and it was mostly about the reliability, for example, being measured in like intervals,
so the
class intervals. That was, I think, a thing which was technically unsound, to kind of use that thing as a measure for reliability, for example.
Okay.
Not in
well,
general.
there were technical measures, but I mean, the other thing I remember stating last time was this notion of threshold, target, and stretch. You know, there were numbers put in there, right? And the consequence of not meeting those numbers wasn't discussed, right? And I think that, you know, the point is, it felt more like a top-down management statement of this is what we want, and it just, you couldn't relate it back to what the consequences of not succeeding were in any shape, then it really just feels like, it doesn't hold water. Right, that's my problem.
Right.
Okay,
so
my problem is not that, for example. I just want to say I don't care whether these are aspirational numbers or not. I couldn't care less. Or I think I like that there is aspiration and that this is fine because the consequence doesn't impact.
So Sebastian, if they have no meaning, why are they there?
It's a product strategy, and I think it's a product committee's remit to define
Sebastian,
what is a good strategy or what not.
Yeah, but actually, shouldn't, as a technical committee, shouldn't we? The very thing they're asking us for is that their product strategy is one that is coherent and consistent, and that's why we're going to be all.
Yeah, that's why I think yes, the coherence and consistency of these metrics is important to us. Whether they are realistic and achievable or attainable, I think is maybe not so much.
That is an amazing statement to make, sir. That is an amazing statement to say. If the technical committee isn't there to try and support potential objective reality, then I must admit I completely disagree with you on that point.
Okay, so I think one thing which stands out by just looking at it again was, for example, the reliability metric is something I think we discussed last time, which we're not so happy with, right? For example, this one about the kind of that much percentage of uptime being like blockless intervals or so.
That was, you read it through, all right, and that was a technical metric which was just badly formulated, right? Okay, but if we're asking, but to make the statement, I'm sorry, I'm going to come back, is to make the statement that it doesn't matter what numbers they put in there, is right, because actually, you're almost saying they'll get what they get.
Yeah, let's take a concrete example here, Sebastian. I mean, say there's an aspiration. I know it isn't in there, but say it's an aspiration to have 1 second finality for all transactions. Now we know that's not going to be technically feasible. Okay, so
yeah, we would be pushing back on that because it is not consistent with what we believe is technically feasible. Yes, but whether it is like the total value locked variable, $200 million or $400 million or $50 million, I think there is no objection there, for example, right?
Well, it depends. It might be depending what the implications are, Sebastian. I don't think the implications have been looked at. I don't suppose the product committee has looked at the implications. So if you have a high total value locked, that might have some implication on how the total stake is distributed amongst stake pools, for example, right? So or it might have an impact on liquidity. So there might be other things which there might be side effects of some aspiration. So you do need to think about those in terms of the total system operation.
So do I understand correctly that you mean that basically all KPIs should be scrutinized and rewritten with like your advice, or is it just a few things which are to be like discussed and
I'd like to know how meeting the KPIs makes the aspirations in all cases. because otherwise there's no consequence to failing to meet them, and therefore they have no meaning. Okay, so
Which is a
that would be
process
my starting
question,
point,
not
right?
about the actual metrics themselves, right? So maybe first
Well,
about
then whether
the
they're
role of the
realistic.
KPIs, and then about which KPIs make most sense technically.
No. Then what happens is, right? So then you start. Then you look at in that light, having looked at them in that way, right? You'll then be able to say, well, wait a minute. Let's just pick this finalization. If your threshold, if your stretch is 1 second, but your threshold is 15, then that's okay, right? Right? We can see that's a technical achievement. We don't see how you can get to 1, but as long as you haven't you've made that a stretch. I'm just trying to give a stretch goal, then that's perfectly okay, right? But so we're not saying we're not trying to dictate things, but we are trying to dictate. There should be a reason about when you put all of these things together. There should be a point inside there which is actually achievable. Right? If you've got aspirations that basically mean that you can't meet both of them at the same time, you need to identify those as a product problem, not as because otherwise it becomes an implementation problem.
Yeah, so we need. I think the argument, Sebastian, is we should scrutinize all of the KPIs. They're not necessarily going to push back on all the KPIs. We need to determine whether they make sense. And
yeah, exactly. And I think most are fine, and a few are just require further specification or discussion. Like, for example, the reliability one, which I recall as being one we discussed. But for example, the total value locked sounds completely.
That was the obvious bad case, right? That was the obvious bad case. That's what
exactly. And the obvious good case is, for example, a TVL goal, right? And maybe being a goal is not that bad, or is a KPI, but the consequence of the process there, it doesn't really matter much, no?
Ryan, you've been waiting patiently.
No worries. I have to drop for another meeting in 2 minutes, so I dropped everything in chat. But in general, I kind of agree with Neil's concerns. I think that the strategy as it is now is too broad, and it kind of seems a lot like we're going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. So the way I approach it is we need to identify those things that are most impactful. Like, what do we think what changes can we make that are going to affect the KPIs the most? So we determine that first, and then second, we actually deliver on those things and measure how well we delivered them. Like, maybe Laos is what it is, and maybe it took an extra year, maybe we delivered 6 months early. And then third, we measure how that thing that we delivered actually affected the KPI. So maybe we expect there to be more users, maybe we expect more TVL, maybe that happened, maybe that didn't happen. So we need to actually measure those things. We can't just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks and hope that our KPIs go up, because we really don't have any ability to just magically make more users on the chain or magically make more TVL. We have to have second or third order effects that lead to those things.
Yeah, and who's responsible if the KPIs are not met?
Yeah, that's the other thing. There's no way to hold anyone accountable for these. They just seem too much. They're just too broad.
Okay. Sorry, making some notes there. Nicholas.
I'm just wondering if what is requested from us, from the product committee, is a critique of which KPIs they have chosen and why they have chosen it, and whether they make sense or not, or whether it's a technical feasibility and a valid technical definition of this KPI. To my understanding, it should probably more the second than the first. I sympathize with everybody who have feeling about the write-up of the product committee, and I think we can all have a personal opinion about the write-up. It's just that as a committee, we should probably just focus on the technical feasibility of what has been written rather than giving our opinion about the KPIs that were chosen and the value of these KPI. And again, it doesn't prevent any of us to give our opinion to the product committee and to interact with them and change their mind about their work. It's just that it's a different committee, and I don't see why we should interfere with what they are doing, aside the technical feasibility, which they request, if I understood correctly, our opinion on.
I think it's probably deeper than that, Nicholas, because it could be that you've got conflicting KPIs, right? So there, it's our duty to say
Yes, but again, it's but we're down to an assessment of the technical feasibility of these KPIs, for example. In that case, it makes sense for us to tell, if you want to reach this and that, it can't be done. It can't be done at the same time because of that reason. If there's a technical reason behind it, my problem is that it looks like we are judgmental about the approach of the product committee, and I don't think it's something that we should do as a technical committee.
Neil.
This is a standard consulting problem. People come and give you all their things, and they ask you for, is this feasible? Right. And then you have to go back and say to them, but actually you haven't asked the really important questions, because there are these technical interactions you failed to capture. That, I think, is beholden on us to give them to them, give the feedback to them, and that's basically where we're coming from here. The key thing, the reason I have difficulty, the reason we will have difficulty, an ongoing difficulty, unless we resolve this, is unless we understand which ones are the most key KPIs to make, if that makes sense, we will not be in a position to turn as a community, not as a TSC, as a community, to make to start doing the value judgments that the trades will come up over the next couple of years. I'm saying, do this badly now. We basically, I'm looking for a nice, polite word, but you can think of the right word, ourselves over in the future. Okay. That's 40 years of experience speaking, and I'm just going to be ageist about this at this point.
Yeah, I've always found that being critical early on saves an awful lot of time later in the process, and a lot of money.
It's a really bad way. It has not, commercially, it hasn't done me very well, because basically it stops you wasting money. And lots of organizations are actually there not to deliver product, but to waste money, right? And I can name you dozens that I've interacted with. But I don't think that taking the community's money and not delivering should be the primary goal of the entire activity here. It should be to try and deliver. That's all I'm saying. Okay, thank you.
Well, I imagine we're all delivery focused here, Neil. But that's what we do, what we try to do. And I'm sure the product committee wants its aspirations and goals to be delivered. So we can work together. One of the things that we do have to, as I've said before, is to then refine from this 2030 vision towards some achievable 2026 set of goals. So that's something we'll have to filter through. Okay, does anyone want to say any more on that, or shall we close that issue down? We can come back to that next week. Great. Any other items up for the agenda that we haven't covered? Tax mentioned vice chair nomination, so do consider that. Anything else we should discuss in this meeting?
We don't have a date yet for this discussion with the product committee, right? It's January, it was mentioned, but probably not yet scheduled.
Yeah, no, it's not yet scheduled. I asked Bosco to contact them again yesterday. I know that Sam Leathers is away because it's Orthodox Christmas today, I think.
Yeah.
So it's a bad time to contact him, but he'll hopefully be back and in operation by next week. And I'm doing this. I'm pushing this early, because the earlier we have the discussion, the better. But obviously, there's no immediate rush to do this. But getting the discussion going earlier, I think, is better than postponing it. They may not be able to make this time, in which case we'll need to schedule some other meeting with them.
Yeah, it just feels like there's maybe not one, but 2 or 3 discussions needed.
I think there'll be a series
from this.
we should be working together, Sebastian.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Great. So thank you very much for everyone. As I said at the start, I hope everyone has a happy and prosperous 2026 and look forward to continuing to work with you all going forwards.
See you.
See you. Bye.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Bye. New Year.